All right, here we go. The first thing you sent me was about complex numbers. Complex numbers, all we have to remember is, I know they write it like this a lot and it looks confusing. This is the real part, okay? We know about real numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay? And then this part is the imaginary part, okay? This is just some number I, okay? Now I, the whole point of I, is because if I try to take the square root of negative 25 in the past, if I put that in my calculator, it's going to tell me it's an error because there's no number times itself that's going to give me a negative result. It's always going to be positive, right? Because 5 times 5 is 25, right? And negative 5 times negative 5 is also 25 because negative times negative is positive. So in the real realm, there is no answer to this. But when we talk about imaginary, we deal with, all you have to do is say the square root of 25 is 5, right? And the square root of negative 1 is I, okay? Because I squared equals negative 1, okay? That's how they circumvent that whole issue, okay? Now, the concept seems a little crazy when you're thinking about it, but when you get started in it, it's not that bad, okay? It's really pretty easy to remember. Main thing is that I squared equals negative 1, okay? So let me go through. I find that my kids usually understand this better if we just practice with the numbers, okay? So here we go. So let's talk about adding and subtracting first, okay? Those are the easiest ones altogether. So if I have 5 plus 3i, and then I say plus 7 plus 6i, right? This is the real part, 5 and 7. Those are like terms. If you remember back when you're combining like terms when you had x, okay? So 5 plus 7 is 12. And then 3i and 6i are like terms, just like 3x and 6x would be. So 3 plus 6 is 9i. Do not say squared because we never said x squared, right? If we had 3x plus 6x, it'll be 9x, okay? So adding, pretty basic. They always put the real part first and the imaginary part second, okay? This is just a complex number. They call it complex because it has a real and an imaginary part, okay? So adding, pretty basic. Now, if I change this, and usually when they're subtracting, they're going to throw parentheses in here so you don't get confused, okay? Now, if I'm subtracting, I'm doing the same thing. I'm saying 5 minus 7 would be, oops, sorry about that, would be negative 2. And then 3 minus 6 would be negative 3i. So that's all you're doing on adding and subtracting. Pretty basic. Most people are like, that's pretty easy. I can do that all day long. Okay. All right. Multiplication, I think, was your next thing that you're talking about. That's the other one that you'll see a lot. And then powers of I think, was the last thing. So let me do multiplication on this video. And then I'll do a separate video on powers of I and any other aspects of complex numbers. And then I'll move on to your next topic. Okay, so multiplication. Let's take that again. 5 plus 3i times 7 plus 6i. Okay? Now this time, you're multiplying. Now, I don't know how you normally multiply by hand. At our school, we do this thing called Punnett square. Or you could do FOIL, which is first, outer, inner, and last. I don't know which way you did it, but this is what we do. We make a box, and we make 4 sections, and we say 5 plus 3i down the side, and then we say 7 plus 6i across the top. And then we're going to multiply. 5 times 7 is 35, right? And then 3i times 7, that'd be 21i, right? And then 5 times 6i would be 30i. And then 3i times 6i would be this box. That would be 18i squared. Okay, so if I bring that all out, I have 35 plus, these are like terms, right? So that'd be 51i plus 18i squared. Now, remember earlier I told you to remember that I squared always equals -1, right? So I got an I squared here, so I can plug in -1 for that I squared. So now I'm going to have, sorry, trying to do all this one hand. Okay, so 35 plus 51i plus 18 times -1, right? Because I replaced that with a -1. Now 18 times -1 is -18. Bring everything else down. If I notice, this and this are like terms. So 35 minus 18 would give me, what, 17 plus 51i. And that would be my final answer. Now, calculators make this so easy. I don't know what kind of calculator you have access to, but I'll show you on this one here. This is a TI-84. A TI-83 will work as well. I can do parentheses, and I can say 5 plus 3i. Now, I is down here at this decimal point, so second I, and then close, open parentheses, 7 plus 6, I again down here at the bottom, and then hit enter, and it's going to say 17 plus 51i, which is what we got when we did it by hand, okay? So calculators, you can use that too. Depends on what version of calculator you're using as to how you would proceed with that. All right, I'm going to stop this video and start uploading it, and then I'll work on a video on the powers of I and anything else dealing with complex numbers.